Hello and welcome back to Theory Spread. Today's video is going to be a little different. We usually stay firmly in the Cosmere, but today we're crossing over and talking about one of my other favorite things, Magic the Gathering. If you've been around the Brandon Sanderson community for a while, you probably know this isn't as random as it sounds. Brandon himself is a longtime Magic the Gathering fan. He's been asked plenty of times about his favorite cards, his go-to strategies, and most interestingly, what his characters would look like as Magic the Gathering cards. So, today that's what we're going to be looking at. Specifically, what would a Stormlight Archive Universe Beyond Magic set look like? Before we get into some of the custom mechanics and the custom cards, is a Cosmere Magic the Gathering set likely? And the short answer is yes. Brandon has been asked before and has told us that Magic the Gathering or Wizards of the Coast has reached out to him in the past asking if they'd be willing to do a crossover. Brandon said he'd be very interested and would love to work on it, and then didn't really hear anything from Wizards of the Coast. His theory is that they reached out to a lot of different IPs and a lot of different franchises and heard back from bigger names like Lord of the Rings and Final Fantasy, and they kind of took priority. So, my theory is that Wizards of the Coast is going to prioritize the bigger moneymakers. And I could see, a few years down the line, when they run out of those bigger sets, that they might go to smaller franchises. Or with Brandon's deal with Apple TV to make movies and TV shows, the Cosmere could rise in popularity where it becomes a big enough name to warrant a Magic set. So what would this look like? I've taken a stab at designing potential mechanics, taking a look at some of our favorite characters. I've made some cards and grouped them together in pre-made commander decks to kind of showcase the selling points of this set. But first, let's set some rules and guidelines. First, the goal of this set is to focus on lore, focus on flavor, and kind of focus on accurately portraying the Stormlight Archive. This means that balance comes second. Numbers like power and toughness or mana costs and things like that, I think would be tweaked if this was ever real. Right now, it's kind of in a development stage. Second, simplicity is better than complexity. Just because all Radiants can heal from damage doesn't mean that each card would have the regenerate ability. It would kind of mess with the balance and make the cards feel pretty cluttered. So instead, I want to be able to glance at a card and say it captures the core of a character instead of trying to fit every single thing. And I think that matches the design philosophy of Universe Beyond so far. We've seen Lord of the Rings sets, and I don't think each card has every single possible ability of one of those characters, but it's more of just, this is generally what this character can do. So I hope to be able to mimic that when it comes to Roshar. Okay, now that we have the ground rules set, we can take a look at some of our precons. I've created 3 decks, and we will start off with our red-black, which I call Odium Reigns. Odium Reigns will focus on a new mechanic called Desolate, where you can bring creatures back from your graveyard at the cost of your weaker creatures. The commander for this deck will be Moash, He Who Quiets. A little bit more information about the Desolate mechanic. It's similar to Emerge, but this one is specific to Parshendi, where you can sacrifice a creature you control and bring back your stronger cards from your graveyard. So for example, you can sacrifice a token and then bring back a devastating one. This mimics how Odium uses his troops during Desolations, sacrificing the common Parshendi to bring back his Ancient Fused. The 2 most important cards to this deck would be your commander, Moash, He Who Quiets, who focuses on provoking his enemies and creating Parshendi tokens to fill the board. And of course, there would also be Odium, the Broken One, and an indestructible god who watches over his army. He would help fuel the Desolate mechanic with Parshendi creatures, and have an outlet to deal damage if you have too many. Other noteworthy cards of this deck could be the Everstorm, a Thunderclast, or even a Servant of the Unmade. Our next commander deck is a blue-green deck. I call it Everything is Crabs. This deck would let you ally with the native forces of Roshar, welcome the High Storm, and let it wash away your enemies while it makes your forces stronger. The commander for this deck would be Venli, Last Listener. This deck would highlight one of the new mechanics of the set, the High Storm. Some cards would create Stormwall tokens, which would be stored on a separate card. There are 10 counters. They are removed at the end of the turn, and all untapped creatures get dealt 3 damage. This would allow weak creatures to shelter from the storms, while stronger creatures could weather it if they needed to. This deck would focus on weaponizing the storm, using it to deal damage to your enemies. The 2 most important cards to this deck would be your commander, Venli, Last Listener, and Cultivation, the Old Mother. Both cards focus on making your creatures stronger and giving you ways to tap them if they can't weather the storm. Some other important cards would be the Chasm Fiend, which can create Stormwall tokens when it deals damage, a Chull Rider, or Thorak. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Where's Kaladin? Where's Dalinar? Well, don't worry. We saved the best for last. The final deck represents the Knight Radiants themselves. It's a 4-color commander that I call the Coalition Forces. This deck would focus on buffing weak creatures, proving that anyone can be Radiant. Your creatures would get better with counters, equipment, and Radiant rolls. The commander for this deck would be Dalinar, Reimagined King. He mainly acts as a way to get more mana to fuel the rest of the deck. The Radiant rolls are new enchantments that can be attached to humans to mimic the Squire mechanics of Radiance. Let's take a look at a few examples. These 3 sagas all create rolls to showcase one of the different Knight Radiant orders. Let's look at one roll specifically. This Kaladin card can create Windrunner rolls. They give a creature +1/+1 and flying. The other Radiant rolls would do something similar, such as the Edge Dancer giving lifelink. Kaladin would also partner with Syl. Now let's look at some other important cards, like Dalinar and Honor. Dalinar we've already talked about. Honor primarily can protect your troops from the harm of the High Storm. Now, here are some other noteworthy cards within the Coalition Forces. We have Adolin, Skilled Duelist, who has the ability to fight other creatures when you are dealt combat damage. Shallan, Master Lightweaver, who can make copies when you draw your second card. And Lift, Hungry Thief, who can become unblockable and create food tokens when she deals damage. We also have Navani, Mother of Machines, who would fit nicely into an artifact deck. Each of these cards could be added to the Coalition Forces deck, depending on what strategy you wanted to focus on. There are some cards that don't fit into a precon or a color combo that we've covered that I would like to showcase. We have Yasna, First Radiant, who can soulcast and transform artifacts in your deck, and Sazeth, who deals damage when crimes are committed. I also created a few dual lands, like the Chasms and the War Camps. And I think there should be more dual lands to showcase the other color combinations and the interesting locations found on Roshar. I even made a few planeswalkers, like Azur, the High Marshal, and Wit, the Storyteller. Azur has a variety of abilities to reflect how she acted in the book, and Wit has abilities related to sagas and stories. He can find the story you need from your deck, and if you use his -7 ability, a creature can become stronger depending on how many sagas you have in play. I made some other cards as well that I think are cool, but don't warrant a full segment, but you can take a look at them here. So, that is the Stormlight Universe Beyond set. Ideally, there would be more cards in the set. For the ones that I made, I used official art and images from the Stormlight role-playing game. But that means that certain characters, like Renar or Pattern, didn't have any art I could use. So, even if they weren't in this video, I do think they belonged in an actual set. So, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Are there any better mechanics to capture Stormlight and Roshar? What cards are you most excited for? Would you like a Stormlight Universe Beyond set? Let me know. And as always, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.